She took a selfie in their kitchen, smiling, glowing, her green head wrap perfectly tied, her lips curled into a playful grin. She sent that photo to a man who was not her husband. But it was not the photo that destroyed a 14-year marriage. It was what was standing in the background. Her husband, playing with their 2 children, completely unaware that the woman he loved, the woman he trusted with every password, every location, every heartbeat of his life, was already 3 weeks into an affair that would tear their world apart. A wife who swore she was happy and a single LinkedIn message from a woman she had never met. One terrifying conspiracy that nobody saw coming is about to be ripped wide open. Welcome to Stories by Infinity. In today's story, a man living in Lagos, Nigeria, receives a notification on the only social media platform he owns. A short message from a stranger, for words that will haunt him for 9 years. Do you know? What he discovers next will make him question every smile, every kiss, every peaceful night he slept beside the woman he called his forever. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button, tap the bell so you never miss a story, and drop a comment right now telling us where you are watching from. We read every single one. Now let us get into it. My name is Kofi Mensah, and 9 years ago, the woman I had loved for 14 years betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. I am originally from Accra, Ghana, but I have lived in Lagos, Nigeria, for most of my adult life. I work at one of the most respected companies in Victoria Island, and for the longest time I believed I had built a life that nothing could shake. I met Amara when I was in my mid-20s. She was Yoruba, born and raised in Lagos, and from the first moment she spoke to me, I knew she was different from anyone I had ever known. She was sharp, funny, spontaneous, and had a kind of confidence that filled every room she walked into. She asked me out first. I still remember how my hands were shaking when I said yes. We fell in love fast. Everyone told us it would not last. My family in Accra said a Ghanaian man marrying a Nigerian woman was asking for trouble. Her family said the cultural gap would catch up to us one day. They warned us about differences in tradition, in expectations, in the small things that build up over years. But we did not listen. We were in love, and love was enough. Or so we believed. We had 2 beautiful children. We married in a ceremony that blended both our cultures. We bought a house in a quiet estate in Lekki. She worked part-time in the media and communications industry while I climbed through my career. We shared everything. Every password, every email login, every phone unlock code, every live location. Not because we were suspicious of each other. The opposite. Because we trusted each other so completely that privacy felt unnecessary. I never once checked her phone. She never once checked mine. There was simply no reason to. Our marriage was not perfect. We had disagreements. We argued about money, about parenting styles, about whose family we would visit during the holidays. But nothing we could not fix over a conversation and a plate of jollof rice. Our bedroom was alive. Our friendship was strong. Our children were healthy and happy. People looked at us and said we had beaten the odds. An intercultural couple that actually worked. That was the life I knew. That was the reality I trusted. And then one ordinary Wednesday afternoon, while sitting at my desk in my office on Victoria Island, my phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. I barely used the platform. I had no Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter. LinkedIn was my only connection to the social media world, and I used it strictly for work. The message was short. It came from a woman I had never seen before. Her name meant nothing to me. Her profile photo showed a fine-looking woman, maybe mid-30s. None of her connections matched mine. She was not even second-degree connected to anyone I knew. The message read simply that she wanted to talk to me about my wife and asked if I knew. I stared at it for maybe 10 seconds. My first thought was that it had something to do with Amara's job. Maybe a professional matter. Maybe something in her industry. I replied casually. Hi. No what? Then I put my phone down and went back to work. I forgot about the message entirely until that evening. When I checked later, she had responded immediately. Her reply said that her husband had been having an affair with my wife and that she needed to speak with me. She left a phone number. I read it twice. Then I laughed quietly to myself. This had to be a scam. Social engineering. Phishing. Some clever scheme designed to get me to call a number and hand over my details. I looked at the profile again. Nothing suspicious, but nothing connecting her to my world either. I left the message on read and went to bed. That night, I woke up around 2 in the morning to use the bathroom. On my way back, I stopped and looked at Amara. She was sleeping on her side, one hand tucked under the pillow, her breathing slow and steady. A few years older than when we first met, but still the most beautiful woman I had ever known. I smiled at her in the dark, and then that message crept back into my mind. What if it was real? But how? When? We had no secrets. I had access to everything. She had access to everything. The thought felt ridiculous. And standing there in the dark, looking at my sleeping wife, I did not feel suspicion. I felt guilt. Guilt for even allowing the thought to enter my mind. I pushed it away and went back to sleep. I did not know it then, but that was the last night I would ever sleep peacefully in that house. If this story is already gripping your heart, you are not ready for what comes next. Make sure you are subscribed to Stories by Infinity so you do not miss any of the stories we share here. Drop a like on this video right now. It helps more people find stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done with that LinkedIn message? Would you have called the number or ignored it like Kofi did? Let us know. Several weeks passed after I ignored that LinkedIn message. Life continued exactly as it always had. Amara and I had dinner together every evening. We watched Nollywood films on the couch after putting the children to bed. She kissed me goodnight. I held her. Nothing had changed. The message became a forgotten blip in my memory, buried under the routine of a stable, loving marriage. Until the day the stranger found me in person. It was a regular Thursday. I finished work, walked out of the building, and headed toward the car park. I was looking at my phone when I heard someone call my name, mispronounced. The Ghanaian pronunciation butchered just slightly, the way someone unfamiliar with Akan names would say it. I looked up. A woman was standing near the gate. At first, I did not recognize her. She looked tired, like someone who had not been sleeping. Her eyes were red at the edges, her hands clutching the strap of her handbag tightly. And then it hit me. It was the woman from LinkedIn. She had been coming to my office, waiting outside, day after day, watching employees leave, hoping to catch me. She did not know exactly what I looked like, only my name and where I worked. She had been waiting for weeks, gathering the courage to approach. When she saw the recognition cross my face, her eyes filled with tears. My heart dropped to my stomach. She apologized. She said her name was Njeri. She was Kenyan, living in Lagos with her husband who worked in the same industry as Amara. She asked if I had a few minutes. She said she needed to talk. We walked to a small cafe nearby. We sat at a corner table. She ordered nothing. I ordered water that I never touched. Njeri told me that she had discovered her husband's infidelity. His name was Emeka. He was Nigerian, successful in the communications field, and he had been having an affair with my wife. Njeri said it took her weeks of confrontation before Emeka admitted anything. He first claimed it was a random woman he met at a bar. A one-time mistake, but she kept pushing, and eventually he confessed the truth. It was Amara. They had met at a networking event in Ikoyi. They exchanged numbers, supposedly to discuss professional opportunities. Within 3 weeks, their conversations had escalated from work talk to flirting to explicit messages to a physical encounter. 3 weeks. That was all it took. Njeri said she had been torn about whether to tell me. She did not want to be the one to destroy another marriage. But she needed answers that her own husband refused to give her. She wanted to compare stories. Was his version the truth? Was it really only 3 weeks? Was it really only once? She had not contacted Amara directly. She came to me because she wanted to give me the chance to process this privately, to hear it from someone who was not trying to manipulate me. Sitting across from her, watching tears roll down her face, I felt something I did not expect. I was not angry at Amara. Not yet. I was furious within Jerry. Why was she doing this to me? I was perfectly happy not knowing. My life was beautiful in its ignorance. Why would she drag me into her pain? But I kept my composure. I listened, and then she pulled out her phone and showed me the screenshots. The message exchange between Emeka and Amara. Time-stamped. Saved. Undeniable. I spent the next hour in my car, parked in that lot, reading every single message. Over and over. The first few were professional, polite, unremarkable. Then Emeka sent a photo of himself at an industry event in Abuja. He was tall, well-built, well-dressed, Nigerian, the kind of man who looked like he belonged in Amara's world in a way I never fully did. The emasculation was immediate and suffocating. Of course she chose him. He is one of her own. He is better looking, probably better in every way I have been taught to measure myself. Then I saw her reply, a selfie, a playful, exaggerated, jealous face, as if to say she wished she had been at the event. That was her humor, spontaneous and unapologetic. In any other context, I would have laughed. But then I looked at the background of her photo, and my blood went cold. I was standing there, in our kitchen, playing with our children, while she took that photo for another man. The messages escalated. Flirty compliments, personal questions. He asked her if she was happy. The conversation, which had been rapid and instant throughout, suddenly paused. For several minutes, she did not respond. And then she wrote one word. Yes, she said she was happy, and she still did what she did. That single word shattered something inside me that I have never been able to put back together. The final messages showed them agreeing to move their conversation to Snapchat. And from that moment, the evidence disappeared. Everything after that point lived only in their memories and in the confession of a man who had already been caught. I drove home that evening, parked outside our house, sat in the car for 5 minutes staring at the front door. Inside that house were my children, my wife, my entire life. And I had a choice to make. Confront her now, or something else. I chose something else. I walked through the door, caught my children as they leapt into my arms, kissed Amara on the cheek, told her I was feeling a little under the weather, and spent the rest of the evening pretending that my world had not just been demolished by a stranger's screenshots in a cafe parking lot. That night, I flipped a switch inside myself. I became cold, calculated, patient, and I began to plan. If you are watching this and your heart is racing, trust me, the story is far from over. What Kofi does next will leave you speechless. But before we continue, do me a favor. If you are enjoying this story, smash that like button right now. Share this video with someone who loves a powerful story. And if you are new to Stories by Infinity, hit subscribe because stories like this one are what we do here every single week. Now let us continue. That night, after the children were asleep and Amara had drifted off beside me, I picked up her phone. I knew every password, every pattern, every PIN code. We had built our marriage on that kind of trust, and now I was using it to search for proof of her domestic betrayal. Snapchat was not on her phone. It had been inactive long enough to be archived. If I downloaded it again, she would know. So I left it. I checked her regular messages with the number I now knew belonged to Emeka. The conversation had been scrubbed clean. Only a few old work-related texts remained, identical to the ones I had already seen in the screenshots. No photos, no flirty words, no call logs. She had erased everything. Not out of panic, but with precision. And that precision told me more than any confession could. I did not sleep that night. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing. The same breathing that had comforted me for 14 years now made my skin crawl. The anger was not loud. It was quiet, cold, and sharp, like a blade pressed flat against glass. I wanted to hurt her, not with my hands, never that, but I wanted her to feel what I felt. I wanted to destroy the version of herself she had carefully maintained. The loving wife, the good mother, the woman everyone admired. I wanted the world to see what she had done. I wanted the affair partner's career to crumble. I wanted to take our children and disappear, move back to Accra, start again, burn everything behind me until there was nothing left but ash and silence. Over the next few days, I took leave from work. Amara did not know. She thought I was going to my office every morning as usual. Instead, I went to see a lawyer in Ikoyi. I sat in a quiet office and asked every question I could think of. What does divorce look like in Nigeria? What are my rights as a father? What happens to the house? What about custody when one parent is from another country? I wrote everything down, every option, every outcome, every weapon the law could give me. Then I called my sister, Adwoa, who had moved from Accra to Lagos a few years earlier. I told her everything, every detail, from the LinkedIn message to the screenshots to the photo with me in the background. She was silent for a long time. Then she said she was sorry. She did not judge Amara. She did not judge me. She simply asked what I needed. I told her what I planned to do. Make the affair public. Publish the messages. Confront the affair partner at his workplace. Take the children. Disappear. She listened. Then she said something that made me lose my temper. Kofi, please do not do something you will regret. I raised my voice, something I had never done with her. I said, something I will regret? She is the one who did something to regret. She is the one who broke this, not me. Adwoa went quiet. She told me she would help with the children. She would be there, but she would not help me with revenge. That evening, Amara called. She could see on our shared location that I was at Adwoa's apartment in Surulere. She asked when I was coming home and if I wanted her to keep dinner. I told her I was helping my sister with something and would sleep there. She said, "Oh, okay then. I will see you tomorrow. I love you." I did not say it back. There was a pause, just a second too long, an empty space where those 3 words should have been. I said bye and hung up. That night at Adwoa's, lying on her couch while my mind raced, a thought finally surfaced that I had been avoiding. How sure was I? How sure was I, really, that the cheating spouse in this story was Amara? I had screenshots from another woman's phone. I had a confession filtered through a devastated wife. I had missing Snapchat conversations and scrubbed texts. But I did not have a single word from Amara. What if the messages were flirty but harmless? What if nothing physical happened? What if I was building a case for emotional destruction based on evidence I had not verified? I needed to hear it from her, not from Njeri, not from Emeka's filtered confession, from Amara herself. The next morning, I drove home. She was at work. I picked up the children, drove them to Adwoa's, and returned to an empty house. I sat down at our dining table, the same table where we had eaten thousands of meals, where the children had done their homework, where we had argued, laughed, planned holidays, and said grace. I removed my wedding ring, placed it in the exact center of the table, and I waited. Hours passed. I did not move. I did not eat. I sat there, staring at that small circle of gold, rehearsing conversations that I would never deliver the way I had planned. My mind played both roles. Me as me as her. The clever lines, the devastating questions, the cold precision I had practiced for days. All of it swirling in a loop. Then I heard her car pull into the driveway. The engine stopped. The car door closed. Her heels clicked against the pavement. Keys in the lock. The front door opened. She stepped inside, saw my car, noticed the silence. No children laughing, no cartoons playing, just stillness. Her eyes moved across the room and landed on the table. On the ring, she closed her eyes, walked slowly to the chair across from me, sat down, and exhaled. She did not ask what was wrong. She did not ask why the ring was there. She did not pretend to be confused. She already knew, and that silence, that single exhale, was the loudest confession I had ever heard. We need to pause here for just a moment. If you have made it this far, you are clearly invested in this story, and I promise you what Amara confesses next, and what Kofi does with that confession, is something you will not forget. But I need your help. If this story is hitting you in the chest, hit the like button. Leave a comment telling us what you think Amara is about to say. And if you are not yet subscribed to Stories by Infinity, this is your sign. Subscribe now. We will be here every week with stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Let us continue. I looked at Amara sitting across from me. Her eyes were wet. Her hands were flat on the table, fingers pressing into the wood as if the surface was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Every rehearsed line I had prepared evaporated. Every cold, calculated sentence I had practiced in the mirror at Adwoa's house simply vanished. I asked one question. Is it true? She trembled. Her bottom lip shook. And then she said it. Yes. She began to cry. Not loudly, not hysterically. It was a quiet, heavy kind of weeping, like something inside her had been cracking for a long time and had finally given way. She said she was sorry. She said she had wanted to tell me that every time she tried, it was never the right moment, never convenient. She used that word, convenient, and it landed on me like a slap. I told her she had one chance, one opportunity to tell me the full truth, every detail, and it had to match exactly with the information I already had. If anything she said deviated from what I knew, even by a fraction, then she was lying. And if she lied, I would bring a storm into our lives that neither of us would survive. She nodded and began to speak. It did not come out clean. She stumbled, started sentences and abandoned them, tried to minimize things that I already knew were larger than she wanted to admit. But I pressed her, again and again. I asked the same questions from different angles until the truth could no longer hide behind her carefully chosen words. She confirmed it. 3 weeks of contact with Emeka that began at a networking event in Ikoyi. They exchanged numbers under the pretense of discussing their shared industry. The messages escalated quickly, from professional to personal, from personal to flirtatious, from flirtatious to explicit. And then they met. They had lunch at a hotel bar on the island, not far from her office. They touched hands across the table. She said she felt wanted, tingling, something she had not felt in a long time, even though she could not explain why, because she insisted that our marriage was not lacking. They booked a room, consensually. She described what happened in that room with a level of detail that I demanded and now wish I had not. Every act, every position, every whispered word. She told me how long it lasted. She told me what she did and what he did. She told me things I will carry in my mind for the rest of my life, carved into a place that no amount of therapy or time will ever smooth over. I asked if he was better than me. She said no. I asked if she did things with him that she would not do with me. She hesitated, then said there were things she was willing to try with him that she had never offered me. Not because she did not love me, but because the recklessness of the moment made her someone she did not recognize. That answer nearly destroyed me more than the act itself. She said the entire encounter was not mind-blowing, that the physical affair itself was average at best. But the thrill, the secrecy, the forbidden excitement of it all made it feel like more than it was. She called it an adventure. That word, adventure, echoed through my skull for years afterward. She told me what happened next. After leaving the hotel, she drove to pick up our children from her parents' house in Ikeja. And somewhere on that drive, sitting in Lagos traffic, it hit her. what she had done, who she had become. She said she had a panic attack so severe she had to pull over on the third mainland bridge. She sat in the car shaking, crying, unable to breathe. She messaged Emeka that night, told him it was a terrible mistake, that it could never happen again. She wanted to meet the next day to discuss how to move forward, how to come clean, how to bury it or confess it. She had not decided. The next day, he picked her up from her office for lunch, but they never went to lunch. They sat in his car in a parking lot in Victoria Island. He tried to kiss her. She let it happen. His hand moved toward her body and she screamed at him to stop. He stopped immediately, but he made a comment about her body's involuntary response. A crude, humiliating observation that she repeated to me through tears. I asked her if it was true. She said yes. She did not understand why. She had no intention of being with him again. But her body did not agree with her conscience. They did not have sex in the car. They agreed to end all contact. And according to her, they never spoke again. I asked the question that mattered most. Why? She said she loved me. I told her to stop saying that. She said she was happy. I told her I did not believe her. She said she loved our children, our home, our life, our intimacy, the way I laughed, the way I held her, the way I played with our children in the kitchen while she watched from across the room. She tried to remind me of every good thing we had built, as if stacking 14 years of love on one side of a scale could balance 3 weeks of infidelity on the other. But she never answered why. Not really. Not in a way I could hold on to and examine and eventually understand. Just, I do not know. And somehow that answer was crueler than any excuse she could have invented. I stood up, and then I did something I still cannot explain to this day. I hugged her. I pulled my cheating spouse close and held her while she sobbed into my chest. Not because I forgave her. Not because I loved her in that moment. Maybe because 14 years of holding someone does not switch off in an afternoon, no matter how much you want it to. I told her I needed time. I told her the children and I would be at Adwoa's. I asked her to call someone, a friend, her mother, anyone who could help her get through the night. I told her not to contact Emeka, not to tell him anything we had discussed. She said she would not. She said he was a nobody. And as I walked toward the door, my back to her, I said something under my breath, just loud enough for her to hear. A simple nobody who managed to destroy our entire future. Her sobbing grew louder behind me. I did not turn around. I walked through the door, got in my car, and drove to Adwoa's house. My wedding ring remained on the table, untouched, exactly where I had left it. That night, I sat on Adwoa's balcony and did something cold. I had recorded the entire conversation. Every word, every sob, every devastating confession. I sent the unredacted recording to Njeri, the woman from LinkedIn, the stranger who had stood outside my office for weeks trying to give me a truth I did not want. I did not care what she did with it. I simply sent it and put my phone down. Inside the house, I could hear my children laughing with their cousins. The sound was the only thing that kept me from shattering completely. When they asked for their mother, when they asked if we were going home, I smiled the way only a parent can smile when everything inside them is collapsing and told them we were having a sleepover at Auntie Adwoa's house. They cheered, and I broke silently behind a smile. I know this chapter was heavy, but this is what real stories sound like. This is what marriage drama and emotional manipulation and domestic betrayal look like when they happen to real people in real homes. If the story is making you feel something, write it in the comments. Tell us what you would have done in Kofi's position. Would you have stayed? Would you have walked out? Would you have sent that recording? Your voice matters here at Stories by Infinity. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And stay with us, because the final chapter of Kofi's story is one you will not see coming. Over the months that followed, Amara and I tried to talk. Multiple times. She came to Adwoa's house. She called. She wrote letters. She begged for another chance. She said we were stronger than this. She said the children deserved a home with both parents under one roof. She said she would do anything, counseling, therapy, whatever it took to rebuild what she had broken. I listened to all of it, and I felt nothing. She tried different approaches as the weeks turned into months. First came the remorse, then came the bargaining, then came the blame. She accused me of throwing everything away. She said I was being selfish for not fighting for our marriage. She said other couples had survived worse. That infidelity in marriage did not have to be a death sentence. That I was choosing pride over love. Counseling was offered. I refused, not because I thought it was useless, but because I knew, deep in my bones, that I would never look at her the same way again. Not because of what she did, but because of who I became after finding out. The cold, strategic, calculating man who sat across from her at that table was not the man she had married. And I did not know how to be the old version of myself anymore. I filed for divorce. It was not a messy separation. Amara did not fight it. She was reasonable with the custody arrangement. I was fair with the finances. We divided everything with the same calm precision that we had once used to build our life together. We spoke only about the children, pickups, drop-offs, school events, medical appointments. The co-parenting conflict that so many people fear never fully materialized between us, though the tension was always there, just beneath the surface. Quiet and permanent, she held on to hope for a long time. Even after the papers were signed, I could see it in her eyes during handoffs at the school gate. A lingering look, a question she wanted to ask but never did. She believed, or maybe needed to believe, that one day I would come back. I never did. As for Jerry, the woman who changed everything with a single LinkedIn message, I sent her a thank you after the divorce was finalized. A short message, honest and simple. She never replied. Not to the message. Not to the voice recording. I never heard from her again. I do not know what happened to her marriage. I do not know what she did with the confession I sent her. And honestly, it is not my burden to carry. A few years after the divorce, I met someone new. Her name is Zainab. She is from Abuja, and she walked into my life at a time when I did not believe I was capable of trusting another person again. She proved me wrong. Slowly. Patiently, without pressure. She listened to my story when I was ready to tell it, and she held my hand when the words got hard. We married, built a new life together. She is everything I hoped for and a few beautiful things I never thought to ask for. I know she is happy, and I know I am the reason for at least some of that happiness. That knowledge heals something in me that I cannot name. Amara also found someone eventually. A man named Tund. He is a good man, decent, kind to the children. We see each other at birthday parties and school events. We are amicable. We exchange small talk. She has told me over the years that she went to therapy, that she did individual counseling, that she can now answer the questions I asked all those years ago, the questions she could never answer at that dining table. She has offered those answers more than once. I have never taken her up on it. The door is closed, but I will not pretend that I do not notice things. At those birthday parties, when the children are playing and the adults are laughing and the music is too loud, I sometimes catch her looking at me from across the room. A look that carries the full weight of 14 years and 2 children and one devastating afternoon in a hotel on the island. I pretend I do not see. My wife Zainab told me something once that I have never been able to shake. She said, "Kofi, you rug-swept everything. You never really healed." She was not being cruel. She was being honest. And she was right. I went cold. I planned. I executed. I divorced. I moved on. I rebuilt. But I never sat with the pain. I never let it breathe. I never processed the grief of losing a life I loved to a betrayal I did not deserve. Until tonight. Because tonight, on the eve of my 50th birthday, I did 2 things. First, I wrote this story down. Every word. From the LinkedIn message to the ring on the table to the confession to the children cheering about a sleepover they did not know was the beginning of their parents' separation. I wrote it all down for the first and last time. Second, I opened a folder on my laptop, a folder I have kept for 9 years. Inside were the screenshots, the chat logs, the voice recording of Amara's full confession, every tremble, every sob, every crushing detail. I had kept them all, for 9 years, like evidence for a trial that was never going to happen. And I deleted them, all of it, gone. I should feel lighter, and maybe I will eventually. But right now, sitting here on the night before I turn 50, I have to be honest about something. I never carried out the revenge I once planned. I never published the messages. I never confronted Emeka. I never destroyed anyone's career. I never made a public disgrace out of my own pain. I did none of it. But the truth is, I still carry a small, quiet satisfaction that I am not proud of. At one of those birthday parties recently, Amara was a bit tipsy. She was talking to Zainab, and she said something that I was not supposed to hear. She congratulated Zainab on the catch of a lifetime. She said it with a laugh, but Zainab told me later that she saw pain behind it. Real, unresolved, permanent pain. And when Zainab told me that, I felt something I should not have felt. I felt glad. I should be a better man than that. I should have processed my trauma, gone to therapy, forgiven fully, and released the anger that has lived in my chest like a low hum for nearly a decade. But I am not a better man. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I am just a man who survived a betrayal, rebuilt his life, and never quite learned how to stop surviving. Tomorrow I turn 50, and tonight, for the first time in 9 years, I am closing the chapter. Whether it stays closed, only time will tell. And that, my friends, is where this story ends. Not with a bang, not with revenge, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a man sitting alone at night, deleting old files, and being honest enough to admit that healing is not the same as forgetting. Leave a comment below. Tell us, do you think Kofi truly healed? Or is he still surviving? And where are you watching from? We love knowing how far these stories travel. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one.